And
Childhood.
your childhood,
Oh.
yes.
Let's see.
When-
That's so long ago, hon, I don't remember when I was a child.
Oh, I bet you do.
Yeah, but I don't.
First, where you were born, and
Okay, I always, do we have to say when we were born?
you don't have to. No.
That's good. I was born in Butterworth Hospital in Grand Rapids, Michigan. And lived there until I was 13.
On Union?
Not always on Union. We moved the last year to Philadelphia.
Oh, I didn't
Street.
know that.
Mm-hmm. And lived there for a year, and then we moved to Chicago. And I graduated from high school in Chicago.
Okay.
Okay, then.
I guess I was born.
I hope.
I was born in our own home in Oak Park, Illinois. And I grew up in Oak Park. I went to Hawthorne Grammar School, went to Oak Park High School, and I don't know.
Now, did your mom have a midwife or someone to come in when you were born?
I'll be darned if I know.
You don't remember.
I was there, but I don't remember.
Yes. Now, Aunt Ava was 8 when you were born.
She was, she was 8 years older than me.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you were 2, you and Uncle Bob were 2 years apart?
2.5 years apart. Uh-huh. Yeah. And then Dad went to the University of Illinois,
That's right.
and we met.
Where
Yeah.
you went to secretarial school, though,
Yes.
didn't you?
I went to Brian Stratton Secretariat School
Was that in Chicago?
in Chicago, Michigan.
We met in an elevator.
Yep. Met in an elevator.
I was manager of the building.
And I worked on the 13th floor.
Oh.
And the 13th floor got a lot of service. Didn't it?
Sure did. Yeah, yeah. And, oh well, you know, went in the service.
Yeah.
And,
I went back with the folks and lived with them, and they moved back to Grand Rapids during.
Back
The
to
war.
Union Street?
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happened to that house in the meantime?
they rented it
Oh, so even
all
that,
during the Depression.
so even when they moved to Philadelphia Street, they didn't sell it, right?
No.
Oh, okay, I
It was
wonder how they
rented
wound
out,
up back
yeah.
there.
So we went back to our original spot.
Fascinating.
And, yeah, it was wonderful.
Now, did you live in the same place all the time in Oak Park? Until,
no. Let's see, we lived, the house that I was born in. We moved from there into Austin. Now, Austin was a suburb right across the line from Oak Park.
oh,
And then at some point in time there, when I was small, and Mother didn't want a house, so we moved into an apartment on Kyler Avenue in Oak Park. And then from there we went to 436 South Lombard in Oak Park. And we had an apartment on Washington Boulevard near Humphrey. And then, of course, this takes place over the years.
mhm.
And then we moved on Maple Avenue. That was great, wasn't it? It was, we were looking
Beautiful.
right. They had the elm trees in those days before they did, and we were right up, you know, in the branches of the trees there. It was a very nice spot.
There was that an apartment too?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and then let's see. Well, Bud went in the service.
Uh-huh.
And so all of them went with them. I think that's when they went to Savannah, wasn't it
Mhm.
Savannah,
Yeah,
Georgia.
station.
And so my folks took over their house.
Oh, were they in Oak Park at that time?
Yeah, yeah. So they were going to take care. They took care of the house and in River Forest, and of course, at that particular time, we were living on Harrison.
Uh-huh.
Were
And
you
then-
were you married at that point?
Yeah,
then? Okay.
yeah, and we were living on Harrison, and then I went into the service from there, and so of course when I was getting in my basic training, that's when my mother died, and
They were still
I don't
living at-
remember what they did with Elvin Bud's house. They must have rented it because my dad went and lived at the
Mhm.
Illinois Athletic Club or Chicago Athletic Club. I forget. I think it was Illinois, wasn't it? And downtown on Michigan Avenue
Wow.
in Chicago. And
Was he still working at that point?
was he?
Your dad?
Oh yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
And of course, I'm a little hazy now as to what I was always going at my basic training. Then I went to Washington D.C.
Did you say you were in Shirley at Camp Campbell?
Well, can't. No, I was
Devens.
Fort
Fort
Devens.
Devens.
And then from there, I was sent to Washington D.C. to go to school. We were there 3 months. Mom joined me, and we had a room across the street from Walter Reed Hospital,
Oh.
and and then from there, of course, I went to my outfit had moved down to Tennessee on maneuvers, and I had to join them down there. And then we went to, after that, we went to Camp Campbell and overseas. And it was when I was overseas at some point in time, Dad met Catherine, and they got married before I got back.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
So you had never met her then when you came back?
Mm-mm.
Wow.
No, not until I got back.
Wow.
Can we have an intermission
Yes.
while I
Yes.
make another, you know what? We will now give the weather report. It seems to be raining on that side of the cottage, but not on this side of the cottage.
Yeah, it does. Sprinklers.
We predict a cloudy sky because it's already cloudy.
It's always beautiful at Chick-fil-A.
That's nice.
Isn't that right?
Right. So anywho.
Now, I want to hear some stories about when you were a kid, some of the things that you did.
Oh, God, I couldn't begin to tell you.
He was perfect in every way.
Oh, I
right?
can imagine.
I guess I used to drive Elva crazy, but that was all right.
So about
She used to always grab me by the ear. That's why one ear seems to be a little longer than the other. And one time I chased her with a butcher knife, and that scared the hell out of her. But I really wasn't going to use it on her, I don't think. And then on occasion, my dad would come after me, and we'd run around the dining room table, and he'd never catch me. But he never spanked me.
You didn't.
No. That was a policy we had an agreement. But he slapped me.
Oh, there's a difference.
Oh,
So,
I never heard that.
oh yeah, he never, no, he'd slap me on occasion, but never spanked me. So
Oh.
that's why I never spank you girls.
That's right.
I just let you slam the door.
Well, how did that situation with your ear happen that time? Remember you said you went to bed with wasn't a bloody ear or?
Oh,
Oh no, that was.
that's when he ran in the house.
I was always told not to run because you might fall, but
Oh.
I didn't listen, and I ran and I fell and I cut my head somewhere up in here. And I went in the bathroom, and it was bleeding like a stuck pig. And but my mother and dad weren't home. Elva was home, just two of us. So I decided that I didn't want to let on, so I went to bed.
And Alva didn't know you had done that?
No, except that when my folks got home, the towels were all bloody in the bathroom, you know, and they looked and the pillow was all bloody. But I was a tough guy, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I was like 3 years old, I guess,
Oh,
and
gee.
I could take it. Anyway, they had to take some stitches in there and so on, and that's why I always told you kids, don't run.
Yes.
See?
That's right.
And that's the story of that.
What about the time that you rigged up a bucket for Aunt Alva when she came home from the
Well, that
date?
was on Halloween, and she used to walk from the L down the sidewalk, and I forget who it was. It was another, maybe it was Bill Belton. It was somebody, myself. We rigged up 2 cans of water with a string across the sidewalk, and it was dark, and whoever was going to come would hit this, and it would, you know, the water would get all over their feet, and of course we're back in the bushes watching, you know, and all of a sudden I see somebody coming, and, oh my God, it's my sister. And sure enough, she hits that, and she knew who had done it. Boy, whang, I got it. Down around the dining room table again.
That's cute.
That's cute.
What about you and when you were in grade school or high school? Some of your friends or some of the things that you did?
Well, of course, a lot of our lives were up here at the cottage.
How much time did you spend up here?
From the day school was out
Really?
in June until it started in September, we were here.
Oh, that's neat.
Just lived here and loved it.
Now, did you have friends up here?
Oh yes, yeah. Well, mostly the 3 farm kids. No,
Oh,
2
honest?
farm kids. The other one was too old, isn't that right, Bob?
Mostly, yeah.
And
Well, and you had Barb, your cousin, up here.
yes, and then Harlow, our other cousin, had a cottage on the other side of
yeah.
the lake. So, and then all the other kids that would come up for the summer, and that's the way they did it in those days. They spent the summer at the cottage, and
Of course, Chippewa was a rip-roaring town because
Oh,
they
it
had
was.
the skating rink, and didn't they have some? Oh no!
Oh,
the
they
early
had
days,
the
they
big
had
bands,
the bands, and they had
uh-huh.
dancing.
Oh,
and-
Oh,
that was
really?
Of course,
fun.
see, that's what they did in those days, over around the south end of the Big Lake. It's Lake Michigan, Benton Harbor, St. Joe, and all around there. People would vacation from Chicago primarily,
Oh.
and they didn't have motels that they have today, but they'd have hotels, small town hotels, grand hotels, and they'd all have a pavilion that they could open, and they'd have a bar, and they'd have a dance floor, and these so-called big bands would travel around to these places, and it was great. Everybody had a good time on weekends, particularly when the big bands were there. See, and they used to do that up there, didn't they?
Mhm.
Where the roller rink is now?
Where the roller rink is
Yeah.
now. Yeah, that was
Huh.
owned by people by the name of Darling.
Oh, yeah.
And oh, it was lovely. It had the mirrored ball that
Oh,
would
my goodness.
turn, and the men all wore the white jackets. And,
Wow.
the orchestra stayed here all summer.
Oh,
They-
really?
They rented a cottage, and for
Oh,
them,
my.
and they stayed all summer, and oh, it was lovely. Just
Now,
lovely.
isn't that interesting? Because there weren't a fraction of the cottages that there are now,
No.
right?
No.
And
No,
yet
but
it
just-
was a much bigger thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, see, that was the thing. People probably in those days they'd come from, well, the Big Rapids for one thing. They could
Drive
come
out
from
for
Everett,
the dances.
and Barretton, and maybe even
Huh.
further, because if this was the only place in the vicinity that on a Saturday night
Yeah.
where they could dance to good music, you see.
Then eventually, maybe it was the Depression that turned into a roller skating rink
Oh, really?
over there. And that we enjoyed.
Now, the Sweet Note was a different building,
That was
wasn't
a
it?
different era.
Oh, that was, oh.
Different era.
Yeah.
It was after we had grown up.
Oh.
When you moved over to Chicago, did you still come back
Oh,
right after
yes.
school and still spend the whole summer,
Mhm.
even though you're
Uh-huh.
coming from Chicago?
Yeah.
Huh.
Keep
Now,
your head down, Dave. You're interfering with the broadcast.
now, when you were in grade school in Grand Rapids, now, well, Billy was across the street from you
Yes.
even when you were first born and everything.
Mhm.
And what did we figure? She was 11 years older than you are.
When I was born.
That's right.
And they were kind of part of the family.
Now, was Alice older than Billy?
Yes, I think 2 years older. But you
Okay.
never locked your doors. They were in and out
Aw.
without ringing the bells. They just were part of the family. And we spent Christmas Eve. They would come over, and Uncle Bob and I would go over to tell them it was time to come. And we tried to ring the bell and tell them very fast and run back home, but no matter how fast we ran, Santa Claus had been there while we were gone
Oh, that's neat.
and left our gifts.
I
Remember,
didn't
Bob?
know that.
Yes.
Oh, that's neat.
And one year I got my dollhouse.
Oh,
And I
how old
still
were
have
you?
it. Well, it's...
What kind of things did you get for Christmas
Yeah.
when you were growing up?
Oh, we got lovely gifts, didn't we? Toboggan and
Yeah.
skis.
Electric trains,
Bicycle, I got one time.
things
Yeah.
like that.
Yes.
Huh.
I
and
remember
we
I had
got-
a race car. They had, it was a fence. It was probably as big as this table right now.
Wow.
And it was a two-rail fence, and this little car had a spring tension on the bumper, so with the contacts, the spring would go along the contacts, you know, and the car goes zzz.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Was it electrically driven?
Yeah,
Wow,
but
that's
see, the fence, the two rails, and
Yeah.
the two contacts, and the bumper had spring tension, so
Yeah.
it would go around.
made contact.
Yeah.
It's like an L train in Chicago. I guess.
Yeah.
Well, that's neat.
Yeah, it was cute.
Huh.
So it was a big change when we moved from Grand Rapids, a nice, quiet little town,
Oh, I
to
bet.
Chicago. But Uncle Bob and I took all the kids for rides on the L, remember?
Sure.
They ride the third rail when you'd walk on.
We used to run across and jump it.
Jump the
Can you
train.
imagine?
Last one.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, your mom didn't know that, I bet.
I don't think we mentioned it,
Well,
did we?
on that roof where you suddenly got
Oh, yes.
wire.
We're
Oh.
running across the roofs, and there was a wire that caught me here, swung me off my feet, back and forth,
Oh, gosh.
and I had
you
a
were with her?
slight cut.
Did
Slight
you
cut.
ever tell her? Did you?
Oh yes, I
We
guess
had
you
That was so
had.
visible you couldn't hide that.
I,
You know, it wasn't uncommon in those days. They'd be building an apartment building, like, you know, 3-story apartment building. When it was under construction, you'd be playing hide and seek, running through, and until the watchman would catch you. And,
Oh, yeah.
You know, because it was very dangerous.
Sure,
sure.
Things were open, and
Sure was. But during the Depression, I think Grandma took us to every museum in the city of Chicago.
oh, really?
We saw everything because it was free for one thing.
Yeah.
you never saw Bushman at Lincoln
Not
Park, huh?
alive.
So I'm stuffed when we were
We've,
there.
yes.
Oh.
You've seen him stuffed, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's interesting when you
He had
see
brown
it,
eyes.
when you
Well,
see.
if Mom spent all of her summers up here at the cottage, and you were raised in the city, what did you do when you were a little kid in the city? Were there neighborhood parks for you to go play in, or
Well, we were
play on the side stick ball on the sidewalk, or
the
what?
city had parks. Of course, we were in a suburb, which would be equivalent to a smaller town, except we were adjacent to a
Big
big
city.
city. So, well, in those days, you'd play maybe in the street. There were very few cars, and there'd be a vacant lot on a corner. So you'd play baseball there. And I remember the one we used to use would be on the corner of Madison and Lombard. And this is the way we played in the summertime. When you were out of school, you'd ride the back of the ice wagon, you know, on the hot days, and it was very refreshing to nibble on the ice, you know. And then sometimes you get up with the horse and the Iceman, you know. And,
You liked horses.
But you did get taken to Wisconsin or something, didn't you?
Oh, we used to go up to, up to Hayward,
Oh, yeah.
Wisconsin. But you know, in those days, 2 weeks was the vacation. Anybody who got 3 weeks would be like the chairman of the board of General Motors or something. But, and they used to plan months ahead of time. There'd be several families, you know, we'd go up
Oh,
there.
really?
And,
From your area?
yeah, it was really a big deal. And really, people got more out of what they did because it was a big deal. And we go up maybe 2 weeks in August, usually in August, and everybody really looked forward to it. You
The
know?
same spot every year, usually?
Yeah, up to Laterno's Resort on Spider Lake in Hayward. And of course my dad was, you know, he was a fisherman plus. And the unfortunate thing is that he wanted me to be with him to fish. And what they would do, when I say they, my dad, he'd want me to go and we'd be in a boat and he always got a guide and there'd be some of the other men. And then the guide always knew where a good pike hole was.
Oh.
And so before lunchtime you hit the pike hole and boing, you'd be, you know, catching these fish. You'd go to a beautiful landing under the pines and so on. The guide would fix lunch, fry the fish,
Wow.
fresh fish. And but boy, this was an all-day affair. So as a kid, you know, I got tired of fishing, but I didn't want to say that to my dad. I didn't want to hurt his feelings, see? So as a result, I mean, today, I'm not a fisherman today because I had enough of it. And a lot of people, when we talk about muskie fishing and how you fish for bass and how you fish for muskie, etc., people say, well, how do you know so much about it when you know, you don't fish? Well, I was well educated in those early days. See? I used to rather be over in the stable having lunch with my horse Butts, a little Indian pony, and I'd fix a sandwich and we'd go over there and I'd go into the stone with him.
Oh, how cute.
That was what I liked.
But as he grew up and was in high school, they went to all the best dances in the Drake and the Palmer House. And by the time I met him, he had done all these
Oh,
things
really?
that I wanted to do. And he'd say, oh, it's nothing.
Oh, don't believe it. We used to go tea dancing at the Edgewater Beach. And when Xavier Cugat was there, and you
Well,
name them, I mean, the
yes,
big
we
band,
did.
Bob remember. We'd go there, 3 o'clock, start tea dancing, and you could stay right on through the night. Boy, I tell you, nobody chased you out of there.
Wow.
We may have a pitcher of beer, you know, and we divide it up. And, if you spent $3, it was a big deal.
Oh, my
And here you were
God.
dancing to the best bands.
Yeah.
You want to, it's coming out of it.
Right. Right.
Yeah, when you were little and you used to go over to Billy's and help her clean whenever she cleaned and take home her goodies that she was getting rid of.
She gave me a lot of nice things. But she had a player piano. And I used to love to sit there. And they had a maid. And the back stairway went up from the kitchen. And when they wanted to call a maid, they would step on a button under the table. So I thought that was kind of hot stuff. So I came home, told my grandmother, what you should do, Grandma, is stay into the kitchen, and when we need you, we'll ring a bell or something. And Grandma didn't think very much of that.
Now, did Grandma always live with you, your grandma?
They came over from Chicago when Mother married Dad, and Grandma and Grandpa lived in Chicago. And Mother and Dad lived in Grand Rapids. Grandma said, now I don't want you running home for every little problem you have. So finally, she wrote her and said, I don't mean forever. You know, we'd like to hear from you. But when Dad was drafted in World War I, His number was second, was it, out of Washington, or third?
Yeah, very well.
He was called up and he had to go in 2 days, and he had 2 restaurants in Grand Rapids, and he had to settle the restaurants and his will and everything. Then Grandma and Grandpa came over from Chicago and lived with Mother.
How old were you at that point?
Oh,
or you weren't born?
I wasn't born.
Okay.
Yeah, this is World War I. So they lived with us for the rest of their lives.
Wow.
They just stayed with us.
They sold their place where they were living in Chicago?
And Grandma was great for real estate, so she had a lot of different places she'd buy and sell. But anyway, during the war, Mother sold one of the restaurants because they were open 24 hours a day, and they were drafting men constantly, so she couldn't keep help.
She was trying to keep both open for a while? Oh, gosh.
And that didn't work out. But,
how long did she keep the other one open?
Until Dad got home.
Is that right?
Uh-huh.
But I thought you moved to Chicago during part of this time.
No, that.
Oh,
No,
that
honey.
was in...
Yeah, that's the other.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
many years ago.
Okay. So she stayed here and they moved in with her.
Uh-huh.
Is that when they put the apartment up there? Was that-
Upstairs. No, that was after Grandma and Grandpa died.
Oh,
And
okay.
they
You talking about Union?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was well after the war.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just didn't need that much room anymore, or?
Right, and income.
Mm-hmm.
Income. Yeah. Of course, a lot of their income came from this cottage property.
Oh, yeah,
Because
selling lots.
They subdivided 2 different subdivisions and sold different lots,
Yeah.
and it's worked out very well.
Let's see. What kind of when you were little? Do you remember any special friends you had, or things that you and Uncle Bob used to do?
Well, let's see. Oh, yeah, we had a bunch of kids in the neighborhood
Yeah,
we
Union?
played with. Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
You know, the dead end kids you've seen.
Grand Rapids was a very quiet, religious,
Oh.
Dutch
yes.
Reformed.
Yeah.
No, I don't think they were even
They
Reformed.
got in more trouble than anyone else.
It was a Sunday, the whole town closed.
Is
down.
that right?
Oh, yeah.
Very strict. Huh?
Yeah. But Uncle Jim Howard was vice president of Grand Rapids Chair Company, so that was a very nice.
Now that was Billy's
That's
father,
Billy's father. Uh-huh.
and that's how Bud came to work there.
Right.
I
Uh-huh.
see.
Yep.
Okay. Now, your dad managed buildings in Chicago, right?
Right.
How many did he have? Did he have several?
Well, two.
Two? How did he get started with that? He just was interested in that kind of thing?
Well, of course, he,
He was the youngest engineer.
yeah, see, when he grew up, his father died when he was 10 years old.
Really?
Yeah. John, the congressman,
Mhm.
his father, who was my uncle, Uncle John, wasn't even born, and his father had already died. See?
Wow.
And in those days, there was an epidemic of typhoid fever. And so my dad, at the age of 10, finds himself kind of at the head of the household.
Wow.
So he grew up by, working in bowling alleys, et cetera, and
How many children were in his family?
Ruth,
Ada
and John,
John,
the
and
4 of
and your father.
them. And
Ada was the redhead.
Oh.
but he had to be 21 years old to be engineer in a building, say, with what they call a stationary engineer, I guess his title. So he he was 20, but he said he was 21. So on the records, he was always a
A year older.
see.
Oh,
But of course, keeping in mind now, in those days, a person, they didn't need a real formal education to get place. After all, we've had presidents that didn't have a formal education.
did he have to quit school when he was trying to support the family?
I think he went through grammar school,
Uh-huh.
yeah. And but then he went to gosh, I can't think of the name of it. It was he went to night school in Chicago to study engineering and so on. But he, as an engineer, then became chief engineer in the buildings that he worked in, and from there he was moved into management. He became vice president of LaSalle Street Buildings Incorporated, which was 33 North LaSalle and 120 South LaSalle, which were and still are very prestigious buildings in the financial district of Chicago. LaSalle Street would be like Wall Street in New York.
Wow.
And I've forgotten what the
How did you get started with business management?
well,
Did you just kind of
I got into it because my dad had a lot of friends and contacts, and it's the old story. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And so when I got into the business world, he made some calls, some people he knew. One was Barty and Company, and Barty said yes, they could use a manager at 127 North Dublin. And I'm sure, I know that I'm on record as the youngest building manager in Chicago. I was only 20 years old. So.
wow.
And that's when I met him.
Yeah, that was the very famous building.
Now
and
that
the
was-
very famous elevator.
That was after you had been to U of I for what, a year? Or?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
were you in business management down there? Or?
I was in school of business, but I was not happy. Well, first of all, the big mistake was living in a fraternity,
What fraternity was that?
Kappa Sig. And, they used to horse around, you know. I mean, here you are, adjusting yourself for the first year, not, everybody, first year being away from home.
Yeah.
And at midnight or whatever, they'd call you out, and they'd do all these crazy, phony things. Or holler the number which represented your graduation number, and somebody needed a Coke or a cup of coffee or an upperclassman, And I couldn't buy this sort of thing. It just irritated me. And the fellows that were living, we had some fellows that were living independently, but they were in the fraternity. They'd go back to their rooms, and they didn't have any of this nonsense. And I just couldn't buy it. I wanted to get in the business world. I thought that this was a lot of baloney, And not only that, but coming from Oak Park High School, it was rated at least one or maybe second in the whole country. When you graduated from Oak Park High School, you had the first year of college without any question. It was a terrific school, and so I wanted to get. Are you gonna pay attention?
Yes.
I'm gonna ask questions.
He's asking about going to U of I.
I wanted to get in business. I just couldn't say. I just wanted, I wanted to grow up fast. And
So
I wanted to make that $1 million. So Bob says we're going to make tonight, right, Bob?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
At 7:30, yeah.
Okay. So 7:30.
7:30.
We have 15 minutes to go. So anyhow,
Did you go back and live at home then?
oh yes,
Yeah,
yes, yeah, and getting back to So Vardy and Company, you know, they were looking for, needed a manager. So I was there, and also real estate broker commercially, that is, leasing to other companies, try to get them into the building. Of course, in those days, the buildings, all the buildings, if they were half full, you know, they were,
Is that right?
oh yes, yeah.
Huh.
And you'd make all kinds of concessions and so on. But it was very interesting, and that's where I met Mom. And
Now, Mom was working there at the time for one of the companies?
But, you know, yes, yes. But what was, see, I'm only like probably 20, I was 20, and probably in a month or two I was 21. I had men working for me that were in their 50s
Wow.
and 60s. And Tony Rasmussen, whom I hired as superintendent of the building, of course we became very, very good friends socially with a salesman that called on me.
Wow.
And we'd get together frequently on Saturday nights, and we'd have a heck of a good time.
And we still hear from Seal Rasmussen
Tony-
every Christmas.
Tony
Wow.
died, and
Oh,
but Seal has got to be what, 80? Did she say?
Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah, we had our last Christmas card. But it,
Oh, you wanted to ask about our first date.
Yes, and how you met. Now, what company were you working for?
I was working for a credit investigation company that went bankrupt.
He was
That's
crook.
great.
you were a crook?
He was a crook. Yeah.
You were a secretary for him?
Well, yes, well, business, you know, typing and going through these files, and that didn't last very long. And I remember when I met Dad in the elevator, after a few times he said, would it be presumptuous if I asked for a date? And I thought, what does presumptuous mean? You know, is
You know what
that
I'd
good or
say
bad?
now? Get the hell off the other. Let's go have a beer or something. No.
But our first date, we went to the 5100 Club on Broadway, and Danny Thomas was the MC.
Yeah. His
That's-
daughter wasn't there though. She wasn't even born there.
That's where he got his start.
Oh my God.
Yeah, 5100. And then we used to go to another place, and on the jukebox they'd have "She Lost It at the Astor." You remember that song?
I don't remember that one. No.
We used to go up there. What was it, Argyle? Yeah, up to the drugstore too. You know.
So
And
what year was it that you met?
39. 39.
39.
Oh, we will tell you this.
Because you were married in 40.
40.
Right?
That's right. Yeah. This car, this Ford,
I
had,
knew that was
I
coming.
paid special, $5 special. I have my wheels painted red,
Oh, I remember that.
baked on. So I don't know how many times we'd gone hither and yonder, but one time she says, "Oh, you have red wheels." Oh. I paid $5 extra for those red wheels.
Per wheel?
No, all four of them. All five of them. Because they had one-
How many times had you gone out before you got taken home to meet Mom and Dad and little brother?
Oh,
Oh, well, Bob used to
Immediately.
tag along as a chaperone.
Oh, did he?
immediately the first day he had to come in and meet Mother and Dad.
Yeah.
And
And her grandmother and I, when she knew I liked herring, oh boy.
yeah,
Oh.
she was
When I
cute.
found out that they had herring, I said, where? Where is it?
Oh, Grandma Rosander liked herring.
Oh
yeah.
yeah, well, the Swedes fixed
And
it.
roll mops and
She
and in
had
those
that
days-
on the back porch, and Dad discovered that somehow. But,
I used to sneak around and see. I thought maybe they might have some money hidden, you know.
no, what Bob did, he came in, he says, you better get out there. Mother's giving him the 3rd degree.
I bet she was too.
Well, let's see. You were what? 19? 18?
Well, in 39, she would have been 19.
Yeah.
And you would have been what? 17?
I wasn't gonna tell my age.
17?
Oh, you weren't, were you? No one would ever know.
Yeah, well, see, Bob, he's still a kid by comparison.
I feel great. But,
Okay, I think we've covered it.
Oh, no, wait.
Oh.
No. Wait, go ahead.
No, where were you going? Were you with? Well, I forget. Let's see. I forget how old you said you were when you got your dollhouse.
About 7, I would say.
Wow. Now, Uncle John modeled that after a house.
He copied it and measured, inch per foot, and
A house in
build
Grand
it.
Rapids.
Anyway, yes, he did. In
Okay.
Grand Rapids, and
This will be for Niagara Falls.
I have it yet.
Oh,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
You were married in
41.
September of
41.
40.
Okay.
Yeah.
You were married a little
Okay.
over a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to know.
My God, it's been longer than I thought.
What did you do between? I mean, were you still
Well, now
working
you're
at the
getting
office building?
personal.
Were you still working at the office building?
How are you getting personal?
Ah, not that personal.
yeah, he was working.
Oh,
No, we didn't.
And
oh yeah.
And
the
then,
Chateau Apartments.
did you after?
After the war, how he met
Yeah,
Norm.
I wonder how you how'd you meet Norm?
Oh,
And what you were doing.
yeah,
and,
okay.
And
Oh, are we on?
I don't know.
Gee, I had to
We're
go to
on.
the bathroom, but I guess I can't.
When we were first married, we moved into the Chateau Apartments.
Oh
In
boy,
Oak Park.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's fancy. We had a bed that pulled out, which was all right.
A Murphy bed.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but there was a courtway. So you get up in the morning, you try to figure out what was it like today. So you had to look up 10 stories,
Oh,
and
gosh.
you'd say, well, I don't know. When you got all that, and you really didn't know if the sun was out or not. Say.
Oh,
But the convenience was you could step right out in front and catch the bus. And in those days, for 10 cents, right downtown,
Or the elevator.
Or the L was right there.
Or Northwestern.
Or the Northwestern.
Right there.
Well, you could take a plane if you wanted
And
to.
we'd go to work.
now you
Right
still
there.
had the job in the
Oh, yeah,
same
I
building.
worked.
They hadn't gone
Oh,
bankrupt
no,
yet.
no. I was, where was I then? I was
Ingersoll.
working. Ingersoll ran.
In the,
I was working.
what in those days was called the Daily News Building, which is now called the Riverside Plaza.
Oh, yeah. I worked there. And
And,
then we moved, the day we were to move into the Harrison Apartments, Harrison Street Apartments, Dad got his 1A notice. We were having furniture delivered.
Oh.
We didn't
Well-
know whether to cancel that.
yeah. It was quite obvious that I was going to go into the service, but we figured we wanted to live a little. Who knows whether we'd ever get back. I mean, in those days,
Yeah.
you didn't know whether you were going to come back. You just reconciled yourself to it. Because even if we had beat the Germans, we had the Japs. And that seemed like would go on forever. And that's why when I hear some of these young people today, they say, well, you shouldn't have dropped the atom bomb and so on. What the hell? I mean, we could have lost 1 million lives if we could have invaded the island of Japan. So, anyway, as history is,
We did have a while after that.
yeah.
Before
we had
you
a
went
while,
in,
but-
yeah, it
that's
wasn't
right,
too
because
long.
I was with Cameron Can Machinery. I happen to know George Cameron. They owned a company which made machinery that made cans. Lock seamers, body makers. That doesn't mean too much to you, but this is machinery that they sell to American Can, Continental Can, and so on. And they were making war materials, but not how do they put it in the, whether it was, whether they were,
Strategic?
whether they were materials that were vital, say, I mean, so it wouldn't defer you. Because if a person was in an industry that was vital, then they would be deferred. Say it was aircraft or what have you. But I knew George Cameron, and I forget the details now, how I got involved. But I went there. We were on Harrison Street, and there were long hours. We worked 10 hours a day there. See, of course, you were gone a lot longer because in those days you didn't drive to where you went. You'd go, you hop on the L, you take the L. By the time you got back, I was probably gone 12 hours. Wasn't it? You know, it was a fairly long day.
Now you were no longer managing a building, you were working for them at this
Oh,
point?
this is before. Yeah. See, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I had gotten out of it.
Okay.
Now we're back into a new field, and
But tell how you met Norm.
well, okay. I had to fight a war first.
Oh,
You know, we had to-
alright.
we-
Sure,
we-
throw
you know,
that
we-
in. Yeah.
We had to fight the war and so on. But anyhow, after the war, okay, I come back. I really wanted to live in Grand Rapids. I didn't want to go back to Chicago. I didn't want the big city. We're getting some static.
I know, honey.
Now, we're going to have to throw them out. Let's do it. They're making too much noise. But anyhow, I didn't want the big city. See, I really never, I guess, really liked the big city. But being away from it, living the way we did in the service, living in a foxhole, I figured the closest thing to a foxhole was Grand Rapids.
Oh, come on.
That's a charming comparison.
That's not very flattering.
No, but anyhow,
You want a more relaxed, a little slower pace. Is
that's
that
right. I always looked at Grand Rapids as a small city on a large scale type of thing because it had everything to offer. And that's what I feel that I have in Sarasota now.
Uh-huh.
Except I have a plus, the climate. And that's really the way I feel. So finally, I think that I found what I was looking for 40 some odd years. Right, Bob?
Right?
See, Bob agrees.
But you never wound up in Grand Rapids. Where did you meet Norm?
Well, this is what happened. I found that in a town like Grand Rapids, it was very, very difficult. You know, after the war, they didn't care whether you had a war, you went to war or not.
Oh, really?
We came back and you tried to find an apartment. You'd be surprised. There weren't any. And what we did find, oh my God, they'd really take advantage of you.
Oh,
see.
really?
Oh God, you wouldn't believe it. We looked at one. You know those yard chairs, those metal chairs out in front? This woman had a basement in the apartment in the basement with that kind of furniture, with
And-
6 dogs up in front, and she wanted, in those days, $100 and some a month.
Oh.
And you had to walk past the laundry tubs
Oh.
and
That's
right.
those dogs.
Now we're talking $100 a month then. That'd be like 500
Probably,
today.
yeah.
See. People didn't care. They took advantage. I mean, here you're a veteran, so what? You know. And so getting back to Grand Rapids,
Finding Norm.
well, I'm getting up to that, but
Oh,
I
pardon me.
found that unless you were with a company from another city, you were transferred there, your father had a business there and so on, forget it. So
You couldn't get started there on your
right,
own.
so I went to Chicago. And oh,
And with
okay.
Verdi.
So there, no.
Oh.
So there, my dad was at that time was vice president of South Street Buildings Incorporated, and Ed Colesap was president. And before, when we first got out of the service, Ed Colsat and Jane, we met them down in Florida, down in, they were in Tongue Isle and so on. And so I knew Ed quite well. Very knowledgeable man. I think this man read the Bible in 4 different languages, to give you some idea. He was a lawyer, a head of Colsat, blah, 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 corporate lawyers, and they had their offices in 33 North LaSalle. And matter of fact, we were together one night, and Ned said to me, he said, "Hey, you want to come with us?" And I said, "Doing what?" "Superintendent of the 2 buildings." "Yeah, fine." So I was commuting on weekends back to Grand Rapids. At one time, we pulled into the station, and I don't know what the train hit, but something happened. It was going very slow. So we were standing up, and it was like hitting a brick wall, and geez, we all went flying forward, see. And but anyhow, eventually those buildings were sold, and but in the interim, Norm got into business. He had been in the business in down in Georgia as Zepp. His father-in-law was Z for Zepp, for Zabin, and he knew the business. He wanted to get into it, and he did. And he called on me, and
And that was a cleaning business?
right. And I bought from And as a matter of
For
fact,
your buildings,
yeah,
right?
in those days, your automatic scrub machines, you used a volcanic ash detergent, and in each building, I mean, this was big business. I said to him, I said, "I'll buy 10 drums, say, at this building, 10 drums." I think he almost fainted, because he hadn't sold more than 5 gallons of anything. And so we got to be, obviously, good friends. So when the buildings were sold and so on, I figured, well, this was a logical business to get into. I knew it from a very practical way, and that's how we got together.
Wow.
38 years
And,
they were together.
Wow.
Can you imagine that?
And I told him, I literally told him how you had to sell. Because I knew a fella that was with Walter Legge, and he sold a product called Texanol, and that's where I got Master Salt. I knew that this was a product that, but I didn't know what it was made of. I didn't know how it was made, see. And but I knew that the ones that were really going to do the buying wouldn't be the guys that were the managers, superintendents. They were going to buy from the people that did the work and wanted what they wanted. Because if you have people working for you, and you complain that they're not doing a good job, and they say, "Well, what you're giving me isn't doing the job," you don't have an argument. So I said to Norm, I said, "We've got to work at night." And we would spend 3-4 nights a week downtown showing these people what Master Salt would do.
How did you come up with the formula for Master Salt?
Well, we sent it there. I can't think of the name right now. U.S. Testing Laboratory was one, and then there's another one. And we eventually got. It didn't turn out to be the same formula, but it did the same work.
Huh.
See.
They kind of broke down that product that you liked
Yeah,
and
but
determined.
there were things. See, there are things in these products that you can't determine exactly.
Mhm.
But it turned out that we really had a better product because we had people tell us that.
Is that right?
Not because we were making it or selling it, but because we had people tell us that. And so 3-4 nights a week.
Wow.
I mean, we're downtown showing these people how to mop floors, what this material would do. And the most dramatic thing is that in those days, see, they didn't have what they have today, like these polymers. They had carnauba wax and paraffin-based wax and so on. You'd take the mop and you'd go down and you'd see it emulsify the wax.
Huh.
And people, this is like magic, see?
Wow.
And all we would hope for is that by the time we got back, it would even out, because we knew that it was going to take time to emulsify the other, you know. But it was a very good product. It put you through college, and
Yeah.
would have put Chan through college.
And a wonderful relationship
Oh,
for
yes.
38
Yeah,
years
yeah,
with
yeah.
Norm and Dad. Yeah. Okay.
But
Now did Norm already have this started up here? You said he had started it from in the South, or he was his
well,
dad,
he worked for his father-in-law
your father-in-law.
in Atlanta. They went in the service, but he wanted to get into this when he got back. And Chicago was his hometown. I mean, that's what he knew.
Norm was,
And
yeah.
what, honey?
I say Norm went into the service.
Well, that's what I said.
Yeah.
That Norm
Yeah,
went in
okay.
the service.
All right.
He worked for his father, who
So
was
he-
Zabin of Zep. See? And today,
You're in the wrong party.
Irwin Zabin, who would be a nephew of Lillian,
Oh,
he was a high school dropout. He never got above a private. I think I was telling this to Bob not too long ago. Never got above a private in the Army, and that's hard to do. He couldn't care less. This guy had a knack for business,
huh.
and I wish I could think. It's something like International something Lemon. It's on the big board today. This guy is a multimillionaire.
Wow.
Oh yeah, he is the most successful person that you'd ever want to meet. See?
Now, how did this all expand? Because you probably started out with some small buildings, people who were
We?
you and Norm, who were
Well,
willing
it
to use
was a
your
matter of cold turkey, cold call, going.
and show them what you had and see if they'll try it. Wow.
Used to say to people, "Hey, you don't believe me?" Because everybody had the same gimmick, you know.
Did you
You don't
start?
believe me? I want to show you. One of my best friends in Cleveland, you know, he was a hard guy to deal with. A Terminal Tower, at that time, the tallest building outside New York City. And I said, I don't have anything up my sleeve. That's exactly what I said to this man. Everything to gain, nothing to lose. All I want to do is show you. Let me come in tonight, any night, and I'll show your people that I can clean your floors better than anybody else. You've got it. And I did. And if he were alive today, which I doubt whether he is, he became my best friend.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh. Did you two
Bob's
start?
told me, he said, you'll never get in the Buell building. I sold a lot of stuff to the Buell building.
Wow.
Frank Puffer and I got to be very good friends. Yeah.
I could smell his product when I come in.
Sure.
I bet. Oh,
Sure.
it smells
He
good.
used to say that's goddamn brother-in-law. Yeah.
Well, did you two start? Did you get a building, or did you just start out of your homes first, or what?
Oh
did you?
no, Norm had a, he had the third floor at 128 West Lake Street, and he had a walk. And I don't mean up and around. You walk straight up the second floor, and
I know what he's going to tell.
and it was a warehouse. That's all. We were right on the elevator tracks, and we had, when we first got into Master Saw, we had somebody make up what they thought they could do. And they made 5 gallons, and it wasn't anything like it. So we threw it down the toilet. And the guy downstairs, he came up to me and he says, I don't know what the hell you guys are doing. He said, but every time we flush the toilet, we're getting bubbles flowing out everywhere. And that went on for a couple of days, see? Yeah.
Oh,
But
now,
we had fun. We had fun doing it, I
Yeah.
must say. And but anyhow, then eventually we got to manufacturing ourselves, because when you got Norm and me together, because we had Ralph Haig company, big company, and they were making it.
Done.
They were making it, and we would talk to Ralph, but we could all, the two of us, we could always ask questions if we could get information that would outsmart the guy.
Oh.
And boom, as soon as he was gone, we were going.
is that right?
We were making it before that, but what we wanted was the one, how he got the one with the lemon, we call lemon. It's really orange terpene. Now, coming from oranges, it sounds funny, but it did have a lemon smell. And there were some people who didn't like the pine. So instead of 6.5 gallons of pine, we used 5.5 gallons of pine and 1 gallon of orange terpene. and it gave it kind of a lemon smell. It gave us a thicker gel too.
Now, who was this person you were
Well,
trying to pump for?
Ralph Haig, Haig Laboratories.
Oh.
They finally sold their company and each came out with a couple $1 million apiece. He and Will, his brother, we knew the old man initially, you know. But, very interesting.
When did Mom move to Chicago then? Because the last I heard you were commuting to Grand Rapids on weekends.
Let's see.
Well,
Had you already started with Norm at that point?
Yes.
we got an apartment with.
Let's see, in 47
apartment.
maybe?
Oh, was that when you moved
46?
in above Sherman's?
We lived
Jane.
with Jane and Sherman and her husband, and
When did you
No.
wind up? Is that when you first moved to the Chicago area? After the
Well,
war?
probably because Nance was born in 48.
Well, when? Now you lost one before me.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of years before.
Oh, no. Right after Dad got out of this service. Let's see, it was 46. You got out in February of 46. Well,
was
got
probably
pregnant
in that year.
immediately.
yeah.
Yeah, lost.
Were you
baby.
still up here at that time, or were you in Chicago already?
No, in Chicago.
You were in Chicago.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
We were living with Dad and Catherine then.
Oh, so when
Uh-huh.
you first moved to Chicago after the war, you were with Dad and Catherine.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
then through the Veterans Bureau, we got an apartment with Jane Sherman,
Okay.
and that was fun.
That was in their home.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We
one of
had
these
like
old homes.
3
We
rooms
were
up there.
Upstairs.
I thought that was now. Did you live with Mrs. Sherman then at some point?
Afterwards,
Afterwards.
Okay.
because
see.
that was at that time, and that's when those buildings were sold. And
Where
we
Jane
decided,
was?
yeah, that was when again I figured I wanted to go to Grand Rapids.
Yeah.
And we did, and
You tried going back to Grand Rapids?
yeah, so I came back. Then we went with Mr. and Mrs. Sherman, and that's when you were born. We had that.
Upstairs
That
apartment.
attic
Yeah.
apartment. Yeah, that was.
Now you
was
had
it.
to be in bed about. How long
That's-
did you say?
That's how we learned to play Russian bank.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Double solitaire. Everything. Well, we had a problem having you, but
That's where the hormone progesterone came in, and he
Bud
was
got that for you, didn't he? Wasn't
well, it was
No,
a,
no,
yeah, it was a
well-
black doctor that developed it, and he's the one that moved into Northville Park in a very wealthy area, and they opposed him, highly, and but he developed the hormone progesterone, and that's what saved you. That's
Huh.
how we got you. Because
he? That's how we got our first and last. Dr. Pete used that for Trent, and
is that right?
yeah, one shot of it, and the doctor I used in Peoria for Kira, I had it every single week.
Is that right?
Little doses of
Progesterone?
it. That's how I kept her after losing
So
2.
that's funny. Yeah,
But
that's
Mom had to
interesting.
be
Quiet.
quiet, so we would play Russian bank every night. She'd be on the bed. She'd
Oh.
lie on the bed and we wouldn't have known.
Gosh.
Yeah.
He's making face.
So then, now did you see about moving in with Sherman's because you knew Jane? You had lived with Jane, and
Well,
Yeah, that's how we
they
got to
they had said when we were going back to Grand Rapids, if you ever come back, we have a spot for you. And Jane said to her parents, "Now remember what you said," and they meant it. And we came back, and
Nice people.
they were wonderful, just
'Cause I
wonderful,
tell you,
just
well,
wonderful.
they were like
It was-
grandparents
Yeah.
to me for a while too when I was
Right.
little.
not that to my knowledge, any GI I knew expected anything for nothing, but at least
Yeah.
you felt that you should have, if you lived in an apartment when you left, you should have something
come
in
back
the way
to.
of an apartment when you came back.
Yeah.
And of course, with the homestead apartments, Mom happened to, I don't know, use saw that
I think
someplace.
it was in a paper.
And
Oh.
I typed
I
my
think
little
though,
thing out.
yeah, I think though they had to be priority to veterans, didn't they?
Oh,
Yeah, that was the only thing we had going
Well,
for
that's
us. They had to
good.
be priority to veterans.
We were
And Mom
fortunate.
heard-
Yeah.
Yes, and most developers, they were going for single-family homes and so on. Well, for the number of apartments that were in the homestead, you'd have to have a guy you'd take
Oh,
in
yeah.
Chippewa and
that was a
Everywhere
big
around here.
undertaking.
And of course, I can see where the people that lived in homes around there, they weren't too happy to have apartments go up. But it did create homes for the
Sure.
veterans. And
Well, here goes So anyway,
I'm making
the
faces at the
story
door.
of our
They're not
life.
gonna know what
Oh, I have a quick question.
Okay,
Just a couple
dear.
quick ones here.
all right.
I want to hear about your hair. You had such curly hair that you used to use axle grease on it. Did you say to straighten
No.
it out?
Oh, not really.
No. What did you use?
I'm-
Or
I was real little. I was so small. I had to stand up on the toilet seat to look in the mirror. Stay comb, they call it. And it
Oh.
would be like axle grease. It was like you put on. Of course, in those days, people wore pompadours. They call it, but they wear the hairspray like Taylor. What's his name in the movies? Robert Taylor.
Taylor.
You remember how
Oh,
Robert
yeah.
Taylor? As a matter of fact, Selleck,
Tom
Tom
Selleck?
Tom Selleck, when you see him in his shows, his hair is not fluffy, but it's up, When you see him, if he's being interviewed, he's got it slicked down, which I don't like. What you kids in school used to call it greasers, I think
Yeah.
of it. But what I used to do to try to get I had like permanent waves.
Oh, yeah. Kinky.
No, wait a
Well,
minute.
all right. Well,
not,
let's say
not kinky, kiddo.
let's say
How do you
wavy.
find a kinky redhead? But anyway, there were beautiful waves, see, and I didn't like it. And I just thought that it wasn't macho at 3 years old to have kinky waves. Not kinky, but anyhow, I used to put,
Just about.
I used to put stay comb on them.
Now, Uncle Bob said that when he remembers you when you first were dating Mom, you had quite a wave here that you would work on, and he said you'd shake hands with one hand and be fixing your wave with the other.
Oh, where do I get to him? No. I used to part my
You
hair in
didn't
the
hear to
middle.
defend yourself, Bob.
I used to part my hair in the middle.
Oh, yeah.
So I got
Oh, yeah.
the service, and one day
Through the screen,
I decided to
somebody
help.
take care
I'm
of that.
gonna part on the side.
Oh, really?
Nancy said that when you first met Dad, that he used to shake hands with one hand and be fixing the wave with the other on his hand.
On top here.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
Yeah, a wavy thing on top. Red hair. It went ooh.
Yeah, I know, you do, but if I did, it was a nervous reaction.
Isn't that great? I love it. I love it.
No, I don't remember doing
We
that.
made them nervous.
But he took me out to find a date. Gal took me out to some gal's house. I wanted to invite to the senior prom or something like that. And she wasn't home. But he would run around town with me and do all sorts of favors that never
Really?
would happen normally for a guy that's dating my sister.
Oh, that's
That's
great.
why he's so successful.
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't know that.
That's neat. Now, you told me that you had scarlet fever when you were little. That's how
I
you
was
got
trying-
those
yeah.
ridges in your teeth?
Trace.
I probably was about 3 years. I was younger than Kira.
Is that right?
Yeah. And a lot of people would say, "Oh, you wore braces." I said, "No, I never wore braces." Well, then the dentist told me one time. He said, "Oh, you've had maybe something, not chicken pox or measles, but something more serious, which was scarlet fever, and the teeth in the process of growing at that time, it inhibited the growth, so that's
Huh.
what formed it. And yeah, it was scarlet fever. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Uh, it was a very serious thing, and they didn't know how to take care of it. They didn't have medication for it. And the bottom of my feet, they could take the skin and peel it right off.
Because of the high fever?
I had the
Yeah,
same disease.
yeah, and they put.
That's
they say to
right.
put you
That's
in the
when
tub.
I went up
Did
to
you have
Aunt
it?
Bill's.
Yeah, second year high school.
Yeah.
High school.
Yeah,
In high school.
second year
Really?
high school. I lived in the back of the apartment looking at the railroad track, the L tracks, and my skin peeled off the
Came
bottom of
out
my
of
feet.
Wow.
I learned something about soap operas because I'm listening to the radio all day long. My first exposure to soap opera.
Ah,
The trouble is when I got cured of its quotation mark, I went down to I rode my bike down to the lake shore and stuff, came back, and my mother berated me because you're not supposed to strain yourself. Because
oh.
they took a physical exam and decided that it left me with a heart murmur. The scarlet fever left me with a heart murmur. I thought, oh gee, I'm restricted from going in the service all my life. But I didn't tell them in the service about that when I took my physical exam for the Air Corps. So I passed out with flying colors, and I didn't say anything about it. Everything went all right. I got to be a pilot and all that stuff, and went through the war. And they never knew that I had a heart murmur from scarlet fever. So.
Well, I didn't.
And I don't know, maybe it's murmuring yet, but
I suppose you can get it at any age. I just never thought that you get it that late
Older.
in life because I had it. See, after all, my goodness, my feet were only like Kira's.
Yeah.
But I always remember this doctor. Isn't that funny? I remember his name, Dr. Smith, and he'd come in. Every time he'd come in, he'd bring a little bottle. Now pay attention, because
Yes.
I'm going to
I'm
ask
sorry.
questions. A little bottle of candies. This Dr. Smith.
cute.
So I used to
You
look
like
forward
to see
for him to
Aw,
come. See,
that's cute.
The
But,
family doctor.
yeah,
He'd
Yeah.
come to your house, huh?
yeah,
And see
yeah.
you.
But
Yeah.
well, that's the way it was in those days. They'd come. And,
Well, when you were growing up, without TV, of course, what kinds of things did you do in the evening? Did you do things
Oh,
together? Or?
well, first of all,
Jigsaw puzzle.
yeah,
Oh.
but you'd listen to radio.
Oh,
Yeah,
And you
radio.
can visualize. You could visualize these programs.
The shadow, no.
Yeah.
And
Well,
Fibber,
what was the
McGee,
one
and
that
Molly.
when we would come
The
home
open
Yeah.
closet
from
door.
Elner's folks, we'd listen to the Olga Cole.
Yeah.
What was that?
It's,
Olga Cole.
The
And
Shadow.
The Shadow Knows, and we'd always be pulling in the dark alley about just the final, and the screechy gate, or
Oh.
door, and we had to stop and listen to the rest of it.
In the car, you mean?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
but it was amazing how you could visualize.
Oh, yes,
these
I-
When did you buy your first TV set?
TV set. Well,
Yeah, do you
when I
remember?
got my state bonus from the state of Illinois, I got an RCA.
For being a
Well,
veteran.
you remember that?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
When was it? 49, 50,
40.
51?
I don't know. Governor
48
Green
or
was in there.
9.
Governor Green.
He gave I think a $350 bonus to the vets and from the state of Illinois, and the reason we got that one, and in those days, I mean, it was like a 12 and a half inch screen, but it had a cabinet, beautiful cabinet.
Yeah.
See, they put all the money into the cabinet. But who were the people? Reed's up on the third floor.
Uh-huh.
They had one, and I was so impressed with the picture we got.
Were you in LaGrange then?
Mhm.
Yeah, and
Our first real apartment
That was
after the war.
and the
Homestead.
Homestead.
when we got
Homestead,
the I think it was $350 for
Wow.
the bonus, and of course you can get you were talking almost that for a 27-inch screen,
Right. Yeah.
Portable.
stereo,
Stereo.
stereo,
Remote control.
Okay,
Right, yeah.
so we said that's what we're gonna get, and we did, and Mike Lyons, he had, I know, Mr. Television.
Milton Berle.
Milton Berle.
Berle. Yeah.
Every time he was on, Mike would be over.
Uncle Milty. Yeah.
Uncle Milty.
Well, now, when did you meet the Selleys? You knew them in high school, did
Well,
you?
I knew Marion after high school. She's younger than I am. Everybody's younger than I am.
Oh, I don't know.
And
I am, I know that.
I feel older.
is he on this?
Voice only.
But anyhow, Marion, I had seen her in high school.
Did she go to Oak
And,
Park High School?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And but very good friend of mine was Bill Riggs, and Bill was older than me. Oh, that's right.
Yeah, you do know
Well,
somebody, yeah.
And,
There is somebody older than you.
but he was going with Marion,
Oh.
and that's where I really got to know Marion. And then it's another one of these religious things. She comes from a very strict,
Lutheran?
I was going to say Latvian
Religion.
religion,
That's pretty close.
but anyway, a Lutheran
That's
family,
an L.
and Bill was Catholic.
Oh.
So whether it would ever worked, I don't know. And I don't know why they pulled apart. But anyhow, she started going with Ralph, another Lutheran.
Uh-huh.
And did I meet Ralph before? Well, he had gone to the service. He was in uniform, I guess. He went in. How the hell did he go in as an officer? He was a lieutenant when he went in, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But anyhow, even if he was an officer, he was a nice guy.
Find out how he
Some
did
of
that.
these guys that were officers, they weren't bad.
Anyway,
But-
we've known him for
Well, I've
40
known
years.
Marion, oh God,
50?
40 years, Mom.
No,
I've known,
longer than that. 50.
yeah, longer than
Yeah.
that. We're talking before I went in the service, so that has to be
Okay.
before, when did I go in? 43, 44?
Uh-huh.
I think
43.
we've done, say for what?
45 years.
And I knew Marion before that,
Yeah.
so I knew Marion before Ralph.
Uh-huh.
And as Marion always says.
And Marion says, she says, I've known Frank before I knew you.
She,
But not as well.
well, that's good.
We won't tell.
That's cute.
Okay.
That's cute.
Well, then you
Finale?
met Ralph because you knew Marion. Or not.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Ready to kill
And
it?
then
Okay.
One
Bob,
other thing I
when I got out, we kind of got together with him almost immediately, and went out, and so they've been
Well, they've been great friends.
Yeah.
You know, they
for a lot of years.
Now, was your first car the one with the red wheels?
$5 for the red wheel.
What kind was it?
It was a Ford Coupe,
What year was it?
39.
Wow. Did you get it new?
Oh yeah,
Yes, with the red
yeah,
wheels,
you
yeah.
bet I did.
It was
Brand new.
pristine looking.
What it cost? Do you remember?
About $500.
$500.
Oh.
And I had a gasoline, Stuart Warner gasoline heater in it. Boy, would that throw the heat. Yeah, it was so
That's
hot.
why I liked it.
I bet. That's right. I bet.
It wasn't the red wheel.
It was warm.
Yeah.
What month was it that you met in the elevator? Do you remember?
Oh God, wouldn't you know? A
Wouldn't you
school
know?
teacher would have to get technical. You want to know the date and everything.
Yeah.
Well, I'm trying.
Was
to
it winter time?
I can't even tell you the time of the year. I can't even tell you the year.
I don't know.
Well, how long would you say you went together before you got
Well,
married?
it was 1939. It was 30. It was 39 that they met.
I know,
And
but
40
they were
they
married
got married.
in
Yeah,
September, but I'm wondering if they
Maybe
know
a year.
a year.
I doubt
Probably
it was
a
that
year.
long.
Yeah. Well, almost.
Now, did both your parents agree? Think this was a good idea?
They agreed. We like the same sodas, strawberry sodas. We like that.
Did you? So that makes it work.
Right.
We both won in poker.
You won in poker?
We used to always play cards when we go out. I always think of that. This big table. You remember?
Yeah, sure.
And your grandmother would always say, "Give me another ship."
Oh.
But what did we play? We played poker. We played several games, didn't
Oh,
we? We always
card
sat
games.
around that dining
With the
room table.
family?
Yeah.
With,
Yeah.
with mom's family?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
You just kind of knew that you were. It blended.
Anytime if I could find a place to park around there,
It was the same way when I met her. I knew that
it
we
was,
just
even in
blended.
those
Just
days.
like
we
that.
tried to- But
Nobody
you know,
else had
Bob,
ever been. No.
You know, Bob, I could walk 2 blocks to my car or something like that. Never gave it a thought. Today, like in a lot of neighborhoods, in that neighborhood, at 12 noon, you wouldn't even get out of your car and go from here to that window.
Mhm.
But you never thought about it.
What Dave wants to know, did you know we were like that together?
Right for each other.
Well, you met for each other.
Right?
Look at his face.
You better
I don't know
say
if the ele-
yes.
I don't know if the elevator was going up or down when I got out.
Oh, that's good, I guess.
As Grandma would have said, if you had to do it over again, would you have done the same? How many times did she ask us
Oh,
that?
I know it.
Yeah?
I know it.
That's
Every
neat.
time I walk in the house, you love her?
Oh, Grandma say that too? Are you sweet on her? Did she
I
say
used to
that?
get so damn mad.
You're gonna have to scratch this.
Oh, no, that's great. I can just hear her.
Well, she did the same thing to me 25 years later or whatever.
Well, I tell you what, camera, I've got to go to the job. And
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
You can fling it.
the news is over.
Say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.